Good morning, class and Mr. Jackson. I am Mr. Fonseca, and today I will be teaching about the 5 types of chemical reactions. First off, what is a chemical reaction? A chemical reaction is a change in which one or more reactants change into one or more products. The first reaction is a synthesis reaction. It is also known as a combination reaction. It is when 2 substances combine to form one compound. Keep in mind that A plus B will equal to AB, and that will form one compound. An example of a synthesis reaction is H2O. 2 hydrogen molecules combined with oxygen gas create H2O, which is water. Another example of a synthesis reaction is the making of carbon dioxide. The 2 reactants consist of carbon monoxide and oxygen gas. The product is, of course, carbon dioxide. Our final example of a synthesis reaction is the making of ammonia. The 2 reactants consist of hydrogen gas and nitrogen gas. Combined together, they both form ammonia. Our second reaction we'll be discussing today is the decomposition reaction. It is a compound that breaks apart into the elements or in a few compounds. In other words, you just need one compound and it will break apart to form 2 products. An example of this reaction is the decomposition of calcium carbonate. It is the single reactant that later creates the products calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. Our second example consists of the compound mercury 2 oxide, which is a single reactant which creates the product mercury and oxygen gas. Our third reaction is a single replacement reaction. It is when one element replaces another element in a compound. In other words, the reactants are an element and a compound, and during the reaction they create a different element and a different compound. In this example, the single replacement reaction, the 2 reactants consist of potassium and water. The products consist of potassium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. Hydroxide is added to the potassium and an oxygen molecule is taken away from H2O, which then makes hydrogen gas. Our fourth reaction is a double replacement reaction. It is when 2 ionic compounds trade ions and a precipitate is formed. Precipitating meaning that solids will be formed during the reaction. A double replacement reaction consists of a compound and another compound as a reactants, and as a result, the products will be a new compound and a new compound. Our first example of a double replacement reaction consists of sodium sulfide and cadmium nitrate being the reactants. During the reaction, the products will be cadmium sulfide and sodium nitrate. Notice how these are 2 different compounds and these are 2 different compounds. Our next reaction is a combustion reaction. A combustion reaction only occurs when a hydrocarbon reacts with oxygen gas. The products will always be carbon dioxide and water. In a combustion reaction, you will always see this equation. This particular hydrocarbon right here is actually gasoline, and it combines with oxygen gas. They are both the reactants, and they are both compounds. Once reacted together, they form CO2 and H2O, which is water, and those being the products. In our second example, the reactants will consist of CH4, which is main gas, and of course oxygen gas, those being the reactants. Combined together, they will form 2 other compounds, which is of course carbon dioxide and H2O, which is main. Now it is time to move on to our experiment. For our materials that we're using, we need 120 milliliters of distilled water, 40 milliliters of silver nitrate 1 mole aqueous solution, a 250 milliliter beaker, a glass stirring rod, and 30 centimeters worth of copper wire. I'd like to introduce my trusty assistant, Emmanuel Reyes. He will be helping me with the experiment. Before you begin the experiment, you need to tie the 30 centimeters of copper wire onto the glass stirring rod. Now we pour in the water. Emmanuel, can you hand me the water, please? Thank you. Now we pour in the water. Can you hold this please, Emmanuel? Thank you. Now, Emmanuel, will you give me the silver nitrate, please? Thank you. Mix it up a little bit, so yeah. Now we pour in the silver nitrate. Mix it up. Emmanuel, can you pass me the copper wire, please? And then we add our copper wire. And now we wait for 10 minutes.
This here is the result after 2 minutes.
Six minutes have already passed. And look at the outcome of our experiment. As you can see, the copper wire has blackened a little. 10 minutes have already passed. And as you can see, there are some particles forming on the copper wire. So we'll gently pick it up so that you can see it. We will now sit and wait for another 5 minutes for more reactions to occur. Stay tuned. The experiment that we have done is an example of a single replacement reaction. Remember, it is part of the 5 types of reactions that we discussed. A single replacement reaction is A plus B, C, and then the products would be A, C plus B. Our reactants mean copper and silver nitrate. By using A plus BC, AC plus B, we know that copper is A, silver is B, and nitrate is C. We combine copper and nitrate to form copper nitrate, which would be Cu NO3 2. We put a 2 right here because copper has a charge of 2. The second product was, of course, which is going to be Ag. Now, what we do next is balance the equation. Since there is a 2 right here, it of course represents that there's going to be 2 molecules of nitrate. So we must put a 2 right here to indicate that. So whatever we do to nitrate must also apply to silver, which is Ag. So whatever we do right here, we must do on this side. And that is our equation, and that's how we balance out. And this is a perfect example of predicting the product.